Let me spoil you all in adultery for a second. You want to see something sexy? Please, hold your applause and orgasms, because if you're worked up from the Sonic Colors logo, imagine what a handjob would do to you. You've read the title, we're talking about Sonic title logos. There's something you may often overlook in a game, but these few words do a lot of heavy lifting on telling you exactly what the game is about just by looking at the subtitle, whether that be by name, graphic, or both. Let's take a look at Sonic Frontiers logo. So first, this font looks more like Google Docs than a font that should be in a Sonic subtitle. The circle replacing the O represents... well, if Walmart says each spark represents a core value, sure, what the hell, the O represents integrity. And the line stretching across the bottom. So, this is clearly supposed to be the side loop from the game. Was it that important? They really hyped up this thing only for it to be used in a few mindless puzzles, and the agenda remains strong in the logo. Look, it looks fine, I suppose. It's an easy thing to visualize in a small graphic like that. I don't really see you being able to include, like, combat or something in the logo, so I guess the side loop gets a pass. For being in the logo, though, it really does fail to encapsulate the game well enough. A good logo, in my opinion, has to do several things in order for it to be considered great, in my opinion. Number one, obviously, looks good. Number two, it needs to encapsulate the game, whether that be with incorporating an integral gameplay mechanic or something like that into the logo. It needs to be tonally consistent as well. It wouldn't make sense for little tykes games like Sonic Heroes to have, I don't know, blood and guts running down the side of the letters. From a glance, you need to get what the game is about. You do all this, and you get a masterclass of a logo such as Sonic Unleashed. First off, the subtitle font is either identical or very similar to the main Sonic font above, making for a really consistent logo. The difference with the subtitle being that there's scratches and imperfections in it, most likely caused from the giant slash that runs down the logo. This does several things. On its own, it looks great, but when you dig deeper, you realize how genius of a logo this is, but also how obvious it is. The whole logo is trying to represent the two halves of the game, that being Sonic and the Werehog. The Sonic portion is already represented by the main Sonic logo portion, nothing to do there. Yet the Werehog is brought in with the giant claw mark through the logo, and the more unsettling, tonally darker appearance of the Unleashed subtitle. The letters are spaced farther apart down below, which aids in the feeling of unease it's trying to visualize. Sonic Unleashed isn't like a horror game by any means, not even close, but the whole night half is supposed to, in the game world, be really terrifying. The world is literally split apart. People are losing themselves to the darkness, and the nighttime Unleashed represents, quite literally, the darker half of the game. This is reflected well in the logo, as the daytime, represented by Sonic, is as bright and cheery as ever, with the darker half creeping below, which is also incidentally creeping into the Sonic half of the logo, possibly showing how this lingering threat is creeping to people's lives even during the day. Or not, and I'm reaching. Anything's possible. Unleashed logo is the golden standard of what Sonic logos, hell, logos in general, should be. It represents the game well, and it looks great. Sonic Forces. Where? Despite the game's faulty quality, to put it lightly, the logo itself is admittedly really good. I'm a huge fan of this logo. It's honestly probably one of my favorites out of the entire franchise. We usually don't get a big sprawling graphic in these types of logos, at least not ones that are so in your face. The colors are really good. I love the limited color scheme they gave it, and the choice to make the Sonic part a more golden whitish gradient was a brilliant idea. The sprawling Resistance logo in the background looks so nice. I absolutely adore it. It's very different from a lot of other Sonic logos in a lot of ways, but it's not different just to be different. Unfortunately, it's really hard to praise the importance of the graphic. In Unleashed, the big mark down the middle represents the Werehog and the nighttime in general. And while here it represents the Resistance, unfortunately the Resistance isn't a very cool part of the story at all. So it doesn't really carry that mark of importance in my eyes like the claw mark does, despite literally being a focal point of the game. But the graphic itself is amazing. Let's take a large step back and go back to some of the first Sonic logos real quick. Sonic 1. This logo holds up insanely well. It's still iconic to this day. The yellow outline around Sonic makes the blue of the text stand out so well. It's so nice. And the bottom bit with the hedgehog is so good as well. So different as well. It's got this sleeker italicized font with red text and a blue drop shadow. On paper, it sounds like a mess, but in execution, this is absolutely brilliant. Everything fits and comes together to make this such a beautiful logo. Sonic 2 is just Sonic 1 with a giant 2 to the side. But it's a really damn nice looking 2, I'll tell you that. I really love the Sonic CD logo, and I can't exactly tell you why. Instead of having it be more subtitle-esque, like how the Hedgehog was in the first logo, it now sits proudly right beside Sonic with the same font, same outline, but now the main text is green, representing Amy, of course. I just love how the CD bit is the exact same style. It makes for some really good consistency, and having it be unlike a traditional subtitle was a smart idea, as CD I think would be too small to really work as a traditional subtitle graphic. Sonic 3 is Sonic 2 but with a 3. Actually, that's not completely true. They made a really simple change, but one that I think works wonders. The outline color of Sonic was replaced with the main text color. The outline is now blue, with the main text being yellow. I don't know color theory, so I can't really say why, but I think this looks way better, and I already loved how it looked before. Sonic 4, sure, why not? It was like Sonic 3, but it got self-conscious, so it went back to being blue again. Why? Sonic Adventure's logo puzzles me. I do think it's good, but it could be so much better. To get the positives out of the way, I am in love with the shape of this composition. The sharper edges near the bottom and how it protrudes down the corners is really nice. I love the subtle fisheye effect they gave to it also. It's really small, but it adds a lot in my opinion. However, that's where the positives mostly end, unfortunately. The actual texture of this thing is not good. The sky into the water gradient is pretty okay, I suppose, but that grainy rock texture used in the outline for it is just really bad. I get they did this because, Mom, I can be 3D too, but nowadays it just looks super tacky. A flatter texture would have worked way better. If they changed the texture, this might honestly could have been my favorite logo. For Christ's sake, the shape is perfect. Look at that shape. Look at the shape of this logo. Because look, if you make this thing like a silhouette, look at it. I'd fuck that logo! That's provocative, damn it! Luckily, they cleaned up their act big time for the next game, Sonic Adventure 2. This is probably the best one. There's so much depth to this logo, so much, and yet all of it works perfectly. The text color is perfect, it transitions from a typical sky blue color into fucking outer space, adding stars to the text. It's really brilliant at capturing the game's transition from Earth to space. It's neat shit. Not to mention retaining the sharp edges that I adored from SA2. SA1. But the thing that brings this together is the background image of a spinball, with half being Sonic's and the other half being Shadow's. The subtle gradient on Sonic's part is also so good. It's subtle, but I promise you it adds a lot. Finally, the 2. This might be the sexiest gradient I've ever seen. Like, actually, look at that! The red to orange gradient is so sleek, so clean, so synonym for perfect. The small dark red outline to the text also looks really nice and does a good job at being subtle, while also adding to the overall composition. Sonic Heroes logo is really cool and pretty. The sky in the background looks really nice and stylized, addressing a complaint I had with the SA1 logo. I love how stupid and bulky the font is. And of course, the team graphic in the background, oh my god, I love it to death. We all know what it represents, beans, alcohol, and gravy, but visually it's just so nice, man. It's got such a good triad of colors, and the way it's displayed on the logo is perfection. Shadow the Hedgehog's logo doesn't shower, and it'd probably try to scam me for pennies in an alleyway. It's trying so hard, but like there's no real consistency to it. 3 different fonts is certainly a choice. There's like this cum stain texture they use in the background of the text that looks fine, I guess. The gradient is also odd throughout the text. Gray to black to red. Okay. Also, just make sure that we squeeze the "the" in there. Just make sure it's just squeeze it in there. Oh, and make sure it's Arial font too. I like the Black Arms logo. It's really nice, and I would say it ties in well and remains consistent with the logo, or well, part of it. There's also like this slash that goes through the middle of the logo, which has no good reason to be there. Doesn't mean anything, and I think it doesn't look very good. Sonic 06's logo is just okay. It's simplistic, and the colors are neat. I like the outline colors. Really, I like a lot about it. There's just a big glaring downside in my eyes that keeps this logo from reaching perfection. I don't care for the font used in the Hedgehog. It's too thin! This thing has an eating disorder, and not the fun kind that the Sonic 1 logo had. I think it would honestly look better as well if it, well, just wasn't italicized. I realize we're kind of rapid-firing them now, so Sonic Colors! It's very clean with the background outline encapsulating both main Sonic text and subtitle. Each letter of colors has a different color representing the different wisp, and if you look within the letters, they've all got different funky shapes. That's cool. Secret Rings has a very cool stylized font and shading that looks really nice. I like the changes that they made to Sonic's test. I like the fire. I like the Black Knight looks Black Knight looks badass. The font is really cool. Black Knight looks badass, the font is really cool, and the sword in the background looks awesome. Sonic Origins is really good and cute, Mania's cuter, Superstars looks like an Alzheimer's painting, and Sonic 4 Episode 2 is like Sonic 3 Episode 4, but with a 1, and I'm fucking loony. Now to send it off, Sonic Generations. In all honesty, there's barely anything to analyze here. Underwhelming, I know. It's just a really good looking logo that takes heavy inspiration from the box art of the Japanese classic Sonic games, with the fun shapes and shit. It's amazing. Sonic X Shadow Generations logo always looked fan-made to me, but as time went on, I grew more and more fond of it, and now, I don't know, I think it's great. Maybe not Vanilla Gens tier, but it's close. Well, I think that does it. I'm pretty sure I covered every Sonic logo there. Sonic Spinball is Sonic CD but purple.